The last couple of videos on the topic of drones being flown over USAF bases here in the UK has raised a lot of questions from viewers. One main question has been very helpfully explained by one of the security contractors who work with the UK military. You might have seen in the news recently that small numbers of British troops have been deployed to 4 USAF bases here in the UK. The reason? These units operate a highly sophisticated system to detect, track, and potentially, under the right circumstances, take control and defeat the drones that are being flown. Recent advances even allow them to track down the pilots. Leonardo have taken to their UK social media to report that their counter-drone technology, under the umbrella name of Falcon Shield, is being used to assist base leaders in assessing and potentially defeating the threats experienced over the past week or so. Essentially, this system pulls together technologies into one suite of capabilities. It is being constantly developed and was actually deployed as far back as the UK Gatwick incident, where the kit was responsible for showing that there were no drones were present and allowing the airspace to get opened. Of course, finding a drone that isn't there is always a tough job, so well done on that side. The Royal Air Force here in the UK have been developing the kit in partnership with Leonardo for some time, and it is primarily used for the security and protection of military forces and bases, but also to protect critical infrastructure and even for public safety. The kit being deployed by British troops to the USAF bases is quoted as being called AUKUS, a version of the system that has recently added a new system which is called, wait for it, Ninja. It stands for Negation of Improvised Non-State Joint Aerial Threats. That rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Ninja definitely sounds cooler. This part of the system is able to identify targets up to 4 miles away using a very high resolution thermal imaging camera. Ninja can identify something is a drone and even what type it is. And yes, the system can work in daytime and nighttime. The AUKUS system can take control of drones approaching and even turn them back on their previous path to lead authorities to pilot's location. This, of course, usually requires there to be a link between the craft and the sender in a more traditional sense that you might expect with a consumer drone, etc. The way that Ninja works is to override the commands provided to the drone and replace them with new instructions. This can then lead the drone to a new final position, or as I say, even send it back. Another dramatic sounding piece of kit involved in the suite of capabilities is Guardian. Now, industry actually call this an electronic sniper rifle capable of jamming hostile drones from 6 miles away. In terms of where the kit is being used, we are told the system has been deployed to RAF bases where US troops are currently stationed. This includes RAF Lakenheath and, of course, Mildenhall, both at the centre of the recent sightings and activity. So this could bring new information or confirm information to the hands of base commanders dealing with the situation, and under the right circumstances even help to clarify what is a drone and what is actually a manned aircraft being misidentified, or even Starlink strings or base aircraft, etc. Some of the other questions from our audience surrounding the drone incursions have focused on physically dealing with the drones and defeating them, so this helps explain some of that. So this system should now explain a little about how authorities are choosing to try and deal with this situation. However, it is worth discussing again the complexity of making a decision to fire upon something in the skies. Remember that these are USAF bases within the UK, so there are very tight regulations in terms of aircraft or personnel from the bases using live ammunition, as you might expect. There are very strict rules giving narrow corridors of circumstances that would allow the USAF to fire on anything in the UK, either on the ground or in the air. To be fair, there are just as high standards for the RAF, but of course they are the host force as such. It is also a very difficult thing to combat. Large drones, some reports are putting them at the size of a car, might seem an easy thing to spot and just shoot down. But until there is a real threat assessed, it could actually cause significantly more problems on the ground to actually bring them down like that. We should also keep in mind that both UK and US authorities are highly unlikely to give updates on the situation. So it might also feel like we're not being told things or that things are being covered up. Now, that isn't the situation in terms of an active situation, and it's perfectly normal for operational details to be withheld. For instance, if the USAF were to give open and frequent press conferences explaining what has been happening in fine detail, this would be a wonderful intelligence resource for the rest of the world watching, wouldn't it? So finding the line about what we should be told can be tough. tough. So a lot of the information from this may actually come out via freedom of information requests. And at this point, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Ian over at UAVHIVE, who is very, very good at getting this information after the fact. There is a link in the description to his X account, and I'm sure he's going to be taking apart this situation for some time to come, which will include FOIAs. And certainly if you want to find out what's going on in the future, his account is a very, very good one to follow for that. In terms of a good portion of recent comments being focused on the belief that these incidents are, shall we say, otherworldly in origin, I am a huge sci-fi geek and love traveling down these rabbit holes personally. However, at the moment, the evidence simply does not point in that direction. Releases and information, the things I need as a journalist to verify a situation remotely, all point towards these being man-made aircraft, i.e. drones. This includes direct sightings by base personnel. Unless that changes and evidence is presented of something else, it isn't a story arc that we'll be traveling down. Keep in mind that this is a drone news channel, so that is the interest of the story for us. In terms of the most likely cause of all of this, in my personal opinion, having digested all the reports and releases, as well as speaking to contacts, my thoughts are that the narrative that this is potentially a criminal operation funded by elsewhere to deliberately cause disruption and perhaps even test reactions is a front runner for me. It sits nicely in terms of why the craft are being so obvious and a few other issues, but that is only my opinion, and at this stage, based on all the information that we know, and I'm open to any outcome should the evidence present itself. Let me know your thoughts on this kit being deployed, and also what your thoughts are in terms of what is actually happening at the moment in the comments. It feels like every single thing happening in the general region is now being put down to sightings without too much critical thinking being applied. I fear for the local ice cream man in his van being identified as a drone right now. Sean out.